Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Let us begin. My name is Gregor Muischneck. I'm the head of the economic and finance team at the Embassy of Switzerland here in Japan. And I'm happy to guide you through our forum today as an MC. At the outset, just a couple of practical remarks. First, let me note that we provide simultaneous interpretation throughout the forum. You find the interpretation devices on your seats. Channel 1 is Japanese, Channel 2 is English. Second, let me also draw your attention to the small program leaflet that you find on your seats. It contains the program of today's event, but also a couple of QR codes. One of them leads you to the website of the forum, where you will find, among other things, all the biographies, CVs of today's speakers. Now, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished speakers and guests, on behalf of the organizers, the Japan Management Transformation Forum by IMD, the Swiss Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Japan, SCCIJ, and the Embassy of Switzerland, I would like to warmly welcome you all to this 6th edition of the Switzerland-Japan Economic Forum. This edition of the forum is organized in the framework of Vitality.Swiss, Switzerland's campaign on the road to Expo 2025 Osaka Kansai, as was just introduced on the screen before. We would like to also express our particular gratitude to the numerous, actually a record number of sponsors that have come on board and support today's event. Now, in order to open the Switzerland-Japan Economic Forum, it is my pleasure to invite the Ambassador of Switzerland to Japan, Dr. Andreas Baum, to deliver some remarks. Mr. Ambassador, the stage is yours.
Madam State Secretary, distinguished speakers and guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Switzerland-Japan Economic Forum. After 3 hybrid editions, it is a pleasure to gather once again in person. To tell you the truth, we were not sure if we could make it happen. When my staff started looking for venues in spring, many were booked out already. I learned that today is a special day. It is the first working day of the second half of the Japanese fiscal year. On this day, Japanese companies and their executives hold ceremonies to retain newly recruited talents. With this in mind, I'm particularly glad that we not only have a roof over our heads, but also a full house today with dozens of chairpersons, presidents, and chief executives of Japanese and Swiss companies joining us, among other distinguished guests from government and academia. The Switzerland-Japan Economic Forum is an important platform to strengthen relations and understanding between the two countries. I wish to express my gratitude for the efforts of our co-organizers, the Japan Management Transformation Forum by IMD Business School and the Swiss Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Japan. This year, we can also count on a record number of sponsors. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, a year after the reopening of Japan, we find ourselves in times of continued uncertainty, but also renewed dynamism. Faced with numerous challenges, Japan and Switzerland are becoming closer and more significant to each other. We are determined to defend and promote our shared principles and values, the rule of law, multilateralism, and solving disputes peacefully. Both countries are serving as non-permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, where we try to tackle the world's most thorny problems together. Next year, will celebrate the 160th anniversary of diplomatic relations. These were first established thanks to the pioneering spirit and entrepreneurship of Swiss watchmakers. They came to Japan to explore a new market for their innovative products and ended up concluding a treaty of amity and commerce between Japan and Switzerland on the 6th of February 1864. To this day, entrepreneurship and economic exchanges remain at the core of our ties. Last year, Japan was the strongest driver of Swiss exports to Asia. Here in Japan, a diverse and growing presence of Swiss companies makes Switzerland the 8th largest investor. The pioneering spirit has endured. The official visit to Japan by State Secretary Hirayama illustrates the significant potential to further deepen and expand collaboration in research and innovation. Last Saturday, we opened a new consulate in Osaka with precisely this mission. Meanwhile, Vitality.Swiss, our public diplomacy campaign on the road to Expo 2025 Osaka Kansai, puts an emphasis on human-centered innovation. At the Expo itself, we want to be present with a pioneering pavilion, which should be extra light and extra sustainable. Ladies and gentlemen, we probably all agree on the importance of innovation, but what are we really talking about? I believe it ultimately comes down to team collaboration and the mindset of individual persons, maybe of some of the young talents wooed across Tokyo tonight. Do we provide the right conditions, the right incentives for that individual person to take a risk and pursue an unconventional idea, to make mistakes and learn from them, to openly collaborate in teams and to actively reach out to other organizations? I hope that today's discussions will help us all to empower innovation and further enhance open collaboration between our organizations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for your opening remarks. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce the Swiss State Secretary for Education, Research and Innovation, Ms. Martina Hirayama, to the stage. Madam State Secretary, welcome to Tokyo and welcome to the Switzerland-Japan Economic Forum.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great pleasure to participate in the 6th Switzerland-Japan Economic Forum, alongside many high-level executives from the Japanese industry and Swiss business leaders operating in Japan. This marks my second official trip to Japan as State Secretary for Education, Research and Innovation. It has been a rewarding trip with many significant moments. I began my journey in Osaka, where we officially inaugurated the new Swissnex consulate. Swissnex in Japan. This new consulate is focused on enhancing exchanges between Swiss and Japanese universities, research and development centers, startups and innovation actors, and underlines the value that Switzerland sees in our relationship with Japan. Yesterday, I joined for the first time in person the Science and Technology Ministerial meeting organized by the Cabinet Office of the Government in Japan at the STC. I also had the privilege to exchange with Mr. Moriyama, the new Minister of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology of Japan. We signed a memorandum of cooperation to further strengthen our collaborative efforts in research and innovation, particularly within strategic domains of mutual interest. These include life sciences, biotechnology, engineering, clean tech, climate and sustainability, artificial intelligence, quantum science, and advanced materials. So there are many areas where we have common interest in research and as well in innovation. Yesterday, I also had several bilateral meetings, in particular with Minister Moriyama. And of course, it's important to see where the strategy of the Japanese ministry is focused on. And today, just now, I met with Mr. Yoshida, Parliamentary Vice Minister of Economy, Trade and Industry. Tomorrow, I will be meeting with ministers, with the Minister of State, Takahashi, who oversees, among other issues, science and technology and space policy. So the primary objective of these meetings is really to exchange on the priorities of Japan, of Switzerland, and to find possibilities for cooperation. Where can we go ahead together? And of course, to facilitate the cooperation between our actors, because it's important that we have framework conditions which makes it as easy as possible for our researchers, for our entrepreneurs to go ahead together and doing projects, startups, whatsoever, in cooperation. And as well, the two funding agencies in Switzerland have an important role with National Science Foundation and InnoSwiss, because they can set up programs together with Japanese and Swiss partners to enable our researchers to cooperate. Today's forum represents an excellent opportunity for us to engage in discussion about the significance of industry-academia collaboration and the role that governments play in fostering innovation and competitiveness. I hope to gain insights from the best practices and experiences shared here and to take away new and creative ideas from the panels we will be able to participate later on. But first, I would like to give you a brief overview of the Swiss innovation ecosystem. Switzerland, located in the heart of Europe, is recognized as an innovation leader in several rankings. In 2022, Switzerland was #1 in the Global Innovation Index, and this already the 12th year. In the IMD World Competitiveness Ranking 2023, we had the 3rd place. We believe that this is the outcome of a combination of factors that are unique to Switzerland. Switzerland is home to top universities, which provide a strong basis of research, which is, of course, important for innovation. In addition, our dual education system with vocational education and training enables a highly educated workforce with different skills for different needs. And, of course, the low density of regulation, especially for the diversity of the labor market, are contributing factors as well. In the education, research and innovation policy, the role of the Swiss Confederation is to ensure the best possible framework conditions for all actors to act autonomously. The Confederation sees itself as an enabler of the bottom-up approach with focus on excellence, competition, and very importantly, international openness. The number of top-down instruments to support research and innovation is limited and is primarily targeting certain topics of overarching interest, such as health, sustainability, and digitalization. We do have specialized institutions to promote and mediate the transfer of knowledge and technologies between research institutions, universities, and the private sector. Switzerland, like any other country, cannot tackle the death valleys without public support. But unlike in many other countries, this rarely happens through direct financial support for specific companies. Instead, the Swiss Innovation Agency, InnoSwiss, bridges research and market by financing university partners if they cooperate with companies on specific, very innovative projects with a high potential for market success. And Switzerland Innovation plays an important role together with regional innovation systems to offer locations and support for market-oriented research and development, and also for companies coming from outside Switzerland to Switzerland. Last but not least, our international openness is very important because we have, like this, also a lot of international researchers and companies in Switzerland. We have global networks, and this is also one part of the success of the Swiss-Japanese cooperation, that researchers from Japan come to Switzerland and vice versa. We shall hear more in detail about these instruments and policies and how they are effective or not effective. Maybe you have ideas what we can do to improve these instruments. We will have an input from Professor Schwarzenegger from the University of Zurich in panel 1, in panel 2 from the CEO of Switzerland Innovation, Raymond Cron, and also of the CEO of the Swiss startup Synhelion, Dr. Ambrosetti. So I'm convinced that today's exchange of ideas will be mutually beneficial. It will allow us to learn from each other and enhance our work. I'm truly looking forward to the fruitful exchange between our Japanese and Swiss participants today. And I'm sure it will support our future cooperation. And I'm also quite sure I will learn a lot what we can improve also from our side, far away in Bern, to support the cooperation here in Japan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam State Secretary, for your words and valuable input to this forum. Now, allow me to hand over to Professor Dr. Mieszek Piskorski from our co-organizer, IMD. He is Professor of Digital Strategy, Analytics and Innovation, and he also serves as the Dean of Asia and Oceania for IMD. He will introduce today the theme of the forum more in depth, and then set the stage for our two panels. Mieszek.
And I will also remain eternally grateful for pronouncing my name correctly.
We worked a lot on it.
Yes, as a Polish person, sometimes that doesn't come very naturally. Real pleasure to have you with us. My name is Mieszek Piskorski. As you said, I'm the Dean for IMD Asia and Oceania. IMD is a very unique business school in that we're almost exclusively focused on education of leaders like yourself. And we are here because we deeply care about what happens to innovation in Japan, and obviously because we're headquartered in Switzerland, we're also deeply interested in what's happening to innovation in Switzerland. And innovation is absolutely top of agenda for a country like Japan. In fact, if you look at the economic history of Japan, it was built on incredible amount of innovation. To this day, Japan remains the third biggest biggest patent filer in all of the world, which is quite impressive, and it spends 3% of its GDP on innovation. As you heard earlier, so does Switzerland. Switzerland is always ranked in number 1, number 2, number 3 in the world for innovation. So we do have some amazing innovation powerhouses here working together. And we know that maintaining this amazing situation is going to take a lot of effort. There are other innovation powerhouses there in the world, United States and China being obviously the foremost ones. And so what we really want to think about is, what do we do to maintain this position? How do we take advantage of these incredible investments that have already happened? And one of the ways to do this is, of course, to start unlocking the relationship between universities and academia and companies. And again, bear in mind that this is something not unique to Japan or Switzerland, for that matter. In fact, some of the best innovations that we're seeing right now, if you think, for example, about generative AI, is coming out of deep collaborations between universities in California and big companies in California, right? Something that has been quite difficult for a lot of people to match. So as we do this, I think that we really have to be mindful of, there are a lot of great examples of this happening already. How can we learn from what's happening in Japan? How can we learn from what's happening in Switzerland to actually even accelerate the position, bearing in mind the competition is quite strong? So to help us do that, I am very happy that we're going to have 3 panelists who are going to help me unlock this puzzle, and I hope you are continuing to pay attention and really help us also from the audience. So I'm going to introduce them first. If I could get my next slide, please. So first, I have Dr. Watanabe joining us. Dr. Watanabe, can I ask you to join us here on the podium? Maybe we'll have you sit at the very end. He is coming to us as the Executive Vice President of Research from the Tokyo Institute of Technology. So thank you for joining us. You'll be opening up with the opening slides in just 1 second, but allow me to introduce another guest of ours, Professor Dr. Christian Schwarzenegger, who's coming to us from the University of Zurich as the Vice President for Faculty Affairs and Scientific Informations. And our last speaker is Mr. Alan Sumiyama, Senior General Manager from Corporate Technology Strategy Division at Sony Corporation. Thank you for coming. So we have approximately, well, to be perfectly exactly on Swiss timing, 38 minutes. So we're going to start with you, Professor Watanabe, to outline a little bit to us what you see already happening in Japan when it comes to collaboration between universities and companies, but also more importantly, what do you see the future to be? So the floor is yours for a couple minutes.
Okay, thank you very much for introduction. I'm Osamu Watanabe, and nice to meet you all. And let me use my cheating pad. Okay. From my side, I would like to report some new trend in Japanese academia industry collaboration. We can see a shift from individual joint research projects to collaborative research initiatives between organizations. Let me use this graph here, over there. Okay. This illustrates the changes over time in collaborative research of our university, Tokyo Tech. I'm just using this as an example, and I believe that the situation is more or less similar in major Japanese universities. As you can see, the total budget got doubled in these 5 years. On the other hand, please also note that the number of projects have not been increased so drastically. So this may suggest that each project size got increased. But what happened really is the increase of number of big projects. Okay, this is the result of the change of the style of academia industry research collaboration. Previously, each project is for making use of our university's achievements and researchers' accomplishments, or for solving some technical problems that partner companies have by using a university's knowledge. But so the theme of each collaborative research project is more or less fixed between universities, researchers, and counterpart engineers, even in relatively big projects. Of course, there are some exceptions, but roughly speaking, this is the previous style. But now, we now have a new style that could be regarded as collaborative research initiatives between organizations. That is, Tokyo Tech and each partner company. In Tokyo Tech, we explicitly started this new style in 2018, which we called Tokyo Tech Open Innovation. In this style, we set up our target to a very high, much higher level. For example, realizing in part the vision of the partner company by advancing the strengths of both organizations. Maybe this is maybe too ambitious, but maybe things is something like this. Okay, and then our collaborative discussion starts from the design of projects, not only one, but several, for achieving this goal. Okay? And then this discussion involves individuals at various levels from both organizations. Depending on the situation, it includes executives, vice presidents, and maybe corporate planning managers, deans, and laboratory directors. And of course, corresponding relevant engineers and scientists. Okay. This discussion finally leads to the creation of the team called the collaborative research cluster between us and the company, partner company. Okay, which usually runs several research projects and which may change during the course of collaboration. In 2018, we started the Office of Tokyo Tech Open Innovation that produces and manages such collaborative research clusters. The first cluster was established in 2019, and now we are running 18 clusters. Finally, I should emphasize one more point. For running this new style, the role of research management staff is crucial. And in Japan, in Japanese universities, well, over 10 years ago, we started a new job category called University Research Administrators, URA in short. And these people are not professors, not technicians, nor standard administrators, but they are special professional role for promoting university research. And this Tokyo Tech Office of Open Innovation also has several such URAs. They work as a key person to recruit, searching for and recruiting appropriate professors, researchers from various departments to make a best team as possible. And then run also the collaborative research clusters. Okay, so maybe up to this now.
That's fantastic.
Let me stop.
That's fantastic. Thank you
very
for that
much.
Introduction. And we're going to hand over to you, Professor Schwarzenegger, to continue to tell us a little bit about what's happening in Zurich.
So we already heard that Switzerland ranks very high in innovation. Let me add to this that also universities rank very high. There is a statistics by Reuters saying that among the 10 top universities in Europe, 3 are in Switzerland, EPFL, ETH, and University of Zurich are in the top 10. So something goes in the right direction, I would say, and I would like to describe this a bit. But first, let me say, a university alone cannot really make a big success if the ecosystem is not really working. And I would like to stress that Zurich, kind of the metropolitan area, is a very important ecosystem for the university. So it's like the university promoting the ecosystem of the metropolitan area and vice versa. And so all in all, the Zurich area is responsible for 20% of the GDP of Switzerland. So this is a very important driver of innovation. What factors are important in this ecosystem? I think it's a good mix of industries that are themselves very innovative. You have top universities, as I mentioned before, research institutes, think tanks. You have a highly skilled set of employees that come from these universities mainly. You have a high quality of life, excellent transportation system, and an attractive tax situation or tax landscape. So this is the environment we are built into. And let me talk a little bit about the setup that you can see here on the slide in Zurich. So we have a dedicated innovation hub, an office that is promoting innovation on all layers. So in the first stage, mid-stage, and then later stages of innovation. We also run together with Basel and Bern technology transfer office. What we do is we really promote already the entrepreneurial spirit at the very early stage with students, involving them into programs. And the connection with companies I can describe as very fruitful. So we attract companies to come in to participate in innovathons, that they bring their own questions into the audience, and then we let young students, but up to the PhD, work on these questions and contribute ideas, and they get like a prize if they win this competition. So this is the early stage to incite such creative environments. But we also have the so-called UZH Entrepreneurship Fellowship, which is also financed by the industry. So the Werner von Siemens Foundation, for example, contributes a lot to this fellowships. So this is when you come from the basic scientific results into the transformation stage. So again, on a competitive level, we distribute these fellowships. And the third one is then to get really larger fundings. We do that especially in life sciences, where the University of Zurich is really strong. But I think another element is you also have to focus. You cannot spread your energy all over the places. So what we did, we have focused the innovation kind of measures on three main pillars: biomedicine and life science, which is the longest and most traditional one; space and remote sensing, because we have an innovation park nearby that is opening or has opened just recently, where there's an airfield, and so we can kind of send rockets into the sky. We have airborne systems, and we can use drones from there. Digital society, this is a no-brainer. It spreads all over the university, and healthy longevity is another area. Now, just to give you some numbers, and I will close there. The University of Zurich is a $1.5 billion enterprise, and we invest $850 million a year into life sciences. So this is really a strong focus, covered by the faculties of medicine, science, and veterinarian medicine. We have 350 professors, roughly 5,000 researchers, 8,000 students. So you see, you need also a pool of talents, a pool of people, and that's why you need to focus on where you really are strong, and that's where we try to bring out the creative ideas. And let me end by saying it's also about core facilities. I mean, you need the facilities that these ideas then really can be developed. The fundamental research can be done. So let's say that we have functional genomics centers, we have world-class imaging departments, and especially through a private donation, we have a Center for Translational Research and Development, where ideas can really be brought into a clinical phase, which is very important in life science. So this is my short introduction, Happy to discuss later.
Thank you. So both of you have brought in the idea of the importance of collaboration, and I see both in Japan and in Zurich things are looking up. You also brought the idea of specialization, which we again seeing across the world. How does this look from the corporate side? So you're on the recipient side of things of this collaboration. So tell us how you see this, how you've collaborated with university here in Japan, and we'll open it up.
Okay. Thank you very much. Before I start, I just want to describe a little bit of the work that we do in my group. My group is called Corporate Technology Strategy Division in Sony. It's actually Sony Group Corporation. What we do is we basically support Sony Group's top management, including the CEO, COO, and of course the CTO, in coming up with the overall technology direction for Sony. So that's one big thing we do. The second part is we help support different R&D groups within Sony to know about each other and collaborate. This is within Sony. And the third pillar is today's topic. We also work with academia and external partners in extending our innovation capabilities, not just within Sony Group, but beyond that. So, and in doing so, we have basically three objectives. One is to access and to acquire really top technology talent across the world. That's the first thing. The second thing is partner with universities to really deep dive into strategic areas of technologies that we really want to be competitive in. And third part is more exploration. So we want to reach out very broadly to learn about technologies that we don't have expertise in, and even some that we are not aware of, but could be of very in future importance. So that's more of a broad exploratory aspect. And in our partnership with Tokyo Institute of Technology, first one is of course access to talent. In Sony, we have a group of top engineers called Corporate Distinguished Engineers. There are about 47 within all of Sony, but we have two of them actually teaching an advanced graduate course in Tokyo Institute of Technology, I think over 5 years now. And that is kind of helping us access talent there. But more importantly, we're working on very important projects together. In fact, two projects that really brings together top people in Sony as well as top professors in Tokyo Institute of Technology to get together and actually work together on very important problems for Sony. And so we value our partnership very much. Thank you very much. And thirdly, another program that we do is called Sony Research Award Program. It is a program that has been in existence for about 6 years. What we do is we reach out to university to get proposals on certain topics that we publish, and we reach out to hundreds of universities worldwide and get applications from most of the top universities in North America, Europe, and India, and those proposals go through a very rigorous selection process, and then just a fraction of them we decide to fund each year. And then for the programs that we fund, we try to learn as much as possible from them. So we hold regular research meetings, and try to kind of basically work together with the professors who propose to us, as well as the students, and gain knowledge, and also, but at the same time support their work. So it's a mutual partnership, and I think it's doing quite well. Yeah.
Thank you for that. So one of the ways in which we can make this discussion much more concrete is to actually come back to you and say, can you share a little bit with us about the kinds of projects that you do, what works well, and maybe also offer some ideas for the leaders on the university side on what can be done better. So let's start with maybe some of the details of what you do and what really works well.
I think one important thing is I think the problem needs to be kind of well-defined. Broad things might work, but I think the more defined it is, the better it is for both the industry side as well as the academia side. And also it needs to be kind of rooted in what's important for the company, because otherwise it won't get continued support. So it's kind of critical that it's part of the strategic areas that we want to invest in. And one of the projects that we do with Tokyo Institute of Technology involves kind of sensing, monitoring the entire Earth with a variety of sensors as well as communication. So, and this kind of project, what's good about it is we kind of architect it in a way that it brings in a variety of expertise in Tokyo Institute of Technology as well as from Sony, and they work very closely together and trying to solve a specific problem, which is how can we kind of sense the world with low power devices and kind of get that data through the satellite network and then analyze it and make good use of it. So that's an example of what we work with Tokyo Institute of Technology.
And I know you work with a number of different universities, so maybe you can also share with us a little bit about, as you look generically across a variety of universities, where do you think universities can strengthen their support? What can they do to make it better for you?
That's a very good question. I think one important thing that we value is kind of this dialogue with the universities. It's not just Sony providing funding and then maybe 1 year later come back with results. What we want to set up is kind of regular. It might be monthly or it might be bi-monthly, but a venue where we can exchange ideas or even tell us something is not working. that is good information, because then maybe we can help propose a solution or work out something else. So I think this continued communication part is I think what makes our relationship with Tokyo Institute of Technology very functional. But I think this can be extended to other universities as well.
Dr. Schwarzenegger, maybe the same question for you, because you've been involved in a variety of these different projects. Share maybe one or two with us and really emphasize something that is unique to the collaboration between universities and companies working together, because obviously universities can come up with a number of different innovations on their own, but we're really interested in what is the delta here that the collaboration brings to the table.
Yeah, let me just state an example that started recently with a Japanese company. It's GC Dental. GC Dental is a dental product manufacturer. Now, GC Dental, of course, first addressed us because we are one of the best dental schools in Europe to participate in clinical tests. So this is a traditional collaboration where products that are developed in Japan need approval in Europe, and the university can help doing clinical tests. But GC is now on a track to become a broader producer of products that help oral medicine. So maybe you've heard that our mouth and our kind of breath are indicators of what's going on in our body. And so what they try to do now, they try to develop into some sensor technology that allows you to measure breath and molecules in the mouth to identify markers, biological markers. So they need a completely new technology, and that's why they came to Zurich. They also have a hub in Switzerland, and that's what they are very much interested in and that requires also interdisciplinary research like remote sensing from satellites with observational data. This is a very new project that we started, and we get funding and we create a specific research team around that topic. Another one is Emil Frey Mobility, is a Swiss kind of company that is the biggest mobility provider in Europe. They sell cars mainly, but they also, they have the scooters in cities, rental cars, and also taxis. So they run a big business. Now they they actually started with a hackathon or an innovathon with us to learn with their questions, because they have a huge amount of data. and they want to use this data. They also combine forces with insurance companies, and they learned that they could take over the business from insurance companies because they are closer to the client. So they asked us to contribute with our AI specialists solutions on how to use this wealth of information they have. So this is, I would say, the very positive examples, but of course you always have to be very careful. Universities thrive for their own kind of IP. You need to have a specific contracts. You have to manage the IP rights together. So, and also it's not so easy, for example, to integrate researchers from the company into the lab at the university level. So this needs a very relationship of trust. But these are two examples, and I think we would like to increase the number of collaborations here.
Thank you. And Dr. Watanabe, I know you raised your hand earlier. I'm sure you had some additional feedback on the earlier collaboration.
For example, maybe I should mention one thing. So I talked about recent style, new style, but also the previous style is also important. And with respect to the research collaboration with Sony Corporation, we are following this previous style, deepening our knowledge or advancing the technology together. That's a very important aspect. But what I said is that we can also use another aspect, and then this is for exploring a new topic or theme that the company wants to move on. For example, some company wants to start a new business, but they don't have specific know-how. So what they ask us is to consider the scenario for going further to the new stage on the new topic. And that is what we are working for together, and collecting many experts from various areas in our university. And actually, the one strength of university is diversity. We have various types of diversities, and then one is the research diversity. And I would sometimes say that university is like Amazon jungle. So we have many researchers, creatures lurking in the jungle, and we pick up them and to create some new project. That is what we are doing for this kind of broad, ambitious goal.
Mm-hmm. This points really to the exploration-exploitation paradox, right? Where we sort of, on the university side, sit more on the exploration side. One of the things a lot of you mentioned is the importance of ecosystem. And I know, Dr. Watanabe, you have a beautiful slide that I love around collaboration. So I would love for you to show this slide, because I think that in some respects it really points to the future of collaborations, particularly in Japan, but also more broadly. So would you mind sharing this with us a little bit?
Yes, so please show the slide.
This is a beautiful slide because it combines very traditional paintings, but it also points us to the future. So please share with us what you mean by this.
So we say that Daigaku Jokamachi in Japanese, which means that university town, like the castle town in European areas or even in Japan. But around the university, we have many startups and many companies, and then also many ordinary people coming together to do something together. And of course, not necessarily real, could be virtual, but we are hoping to create such a university town in the future.
Can you share some details? I know you said it could be virtual as well, but if it were analog, what would it look like, where it would be, what would be happening?
Well, maybe startups is very important, the items of this university town. And then we are currently encouraging many students and young researchers to create new startups. And those are very important items here. And actually, you can find a president and myself in this drawing, but later, please find it out.
Where's Waldo? Yes, we can see that.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, Zurich, to a certain extent, already is a little bit of a university town, or actually is quite a fundamental university town. What are your plans for the future? How do you see this evolve in the future?
Location-wise, we are in the middle of the city, so we have some shortage of space, but we are trying to manage. We are increasing the number of campuses. The virtual world, we didn't go metaverse yet, so that there is a talk about this. We had actually some contacts with also business partners that wanted to establish something on the metaverse, but first steps haven't been taken yet. I think for us, and probably also Michael Hengartner will point to that, we will focus in the future on the big challenges, and maybe we need a little bit more focus also in innovation. And we have discussed now just recently in Kyoto about what the big challenges are. I see 3 big challenges that are concurrent at the moment. So we have the geopolitical tensions. I mean, we have a situation where there is, again, some sort of technical competition, which also relates to the military sector. I've heard that in Japan, you're discussing on how to reach out for the universities to support the defense, which is traditionally not done in Japan. In Switzerland and the United States, we have a long tradition of doing that. But this causes a lot of topics in relation to how to regulate the technology transfer from now on. The second big challenge is, of course, climate change and loss of biodiversity. That's where we are very strong, and we're monitoring it. We are giving advice on how to tackle these problems. And the third one is the generative AI revolution. That has been also the talk in Kyoto just over the weekend. Something that just happened. I think we are a little bit lacking behind. There I see, of course, on the one hand, the potential to develop innovative new ideas, also create wealth with it, and create also safety and health and so on. But there is also a big risk connected to it, connected to the military sector, for example. So we need also to think about how to regulate AI in the future. Japan has taken the initiative with the Hiroshima kind of procedure on AI regulation, and it's ongoing a discussion to build this up. Our university is also involved in setting standards here. So I think we will have a focus for the next couple of years.
On the topic of AI, I mean, you can't have a panel these days on anything without attaching AI to this. So thank you for bringing this up, because otherwise I would have brought it up. But I do think it's actually very profound for this topic. Sometimes people just add it because you have to talk about AI. But if you particularly think about generative AI, one of the things it does reasonably well and will continue to get better at is generating new ideas. And if you think about sort of core function of university is to generate new ideas, and as you said, universities are particularly good at cross-disciplinary alignment of ideas, which again, something generative AI through its emergent properties is showing to be quite good at. And as you're looking at, previewing what's happening with GPT-5, for example, it gets insanely better at this. So in some ways, this could be a threat to collaborations between universities and companies, because companies can say, well, why do we need universities? We'll just become better friends with AI and leave universities behind. What do you think? Yeah, of course. So,
well, actually, we did some contest with the students last month. The contest title is Let's Use Up Generative ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And we had 20 teams participating into this contest. And I was surprised. So last week we did an evaluation ceremony. And then what I was surprised is that students from various fields are coming together, making a team, and then try to make various interesting applications by using ChatGPT. And that means that this generative AI reduces the barrier for other fields in people from other areas to join into this area to make use of computation. And so previously, maybe only computer scientists or programmers can make use of such things, but these days, many people and various knowledge can be used without hesitation. So that's what the students are have been done last month. And I was very much surprised and then appreciated this one.
And that's just beginning, right? Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, I'm a little bit more skeptical because I'm also a social scientist and I know how important data is. And if data is not, collected properly or methodologically, there are some biases in the data. You get also biased results. And the first question is, who is doing the quality control in generative AI? I mean, at the National Institute of Informatics in Japan, somebody is working on a software solution to find out or to get quality control in AI products, which is very complicated to do. So I think the basic data that are used to train the algorithms have to be really reviewed and broadened also. I think we need also more variety in the basic data. So, but of course, this being said, there's a lot of potential in it, and we will certainly participate in the development of it and also in applying with it. So universities, I think, play the critical kind of review part and will also by themselves use the instrument in creating new ideas for sure.
Alan, how does generative AI look at Sony, not only for business as a whole, which I'm sure it does, particularly in the gaming business, but how does it play itself out in the relationship with how you interact with universities?
Yeah, so I think generative AI and also AI in general, it's kind of changing the way, scientific and technological discoveries are made. So we need to be aware of that, and also when we kind of ask universities to work with us, I think no technology field anymore is not using some kind of AI method in their work. So we need to be able to understand that. We need to be able to leverage that. And as Professor Schwarzenegger said, where's the data coming from? That the integrity of the data, that's quite important as well. So that really requires new capability on our side to be able to evaluate the research, but also when we bring it in, when we integrate the research, are we bringing in something that has been done, quote unquote, properly, right? So that's, I think, a new challenge for us. And for our engineering side, it's more, we're generally leveraging those kind of capabilities because, like Dr. Watanabe said, it kind of enhances the ability of individuals to come up with new ideas. That's also same in industry, not only in technology field, but real other business fields as well. So we will continue to invest in those areas and find ways that kind of improve how we design products, how we deliver products, and how we kind of do R&D.
So we only have about 3 minutes left to make sure, 2 minutes left to make sure that we keep us on time. I'm going to ask you just for literally 30-second soundbite on the following topic. One of the important things that happens, of course, with innovation, it's not just companies, it's just not academia, but the government also has a really big part. Our next panel is on government, but before we let our next speakers talk about government, help me understand, where do you also see an important role of the government in the collaborations between academia and organizations? So, Dr. Schwarzenegger, I'm going to start with you, and then I'm going to hand it over.
Okay, so the first idea is sandboxing. I mean, you need environments where you can try out things. Switzerland did that, for example, with the blockchain technology. Of course, funding is a second layer of important support for the university system. And the third one is, I think I talked about the environment, the ecosystem. You have to provide an ecosystem that is friendly to the creation of new ideas, and I think that's where Switzerland is quite strong at.
Dr. Watanabe?
Okay, so the government support is quite important when we start something new. For example, when we started the Office of Open Innovation, this was possible because of the support from the Ministry of Education for this kind of management. So we need some initial money to start try to do some new things. And that is what the government can help us.
Yeah, so I think funding, of course, is important, and also bringing, not just funding single companies, but I think initiatives that would enable, through that funding, to collaborate with each other, not just industry partners, but also with universities. I think that kind of scheme we should have more of, and hopefully that could be made even more global as well. Not just within a single country, but possibly with international partners.
Super. Well, thank you so much. We are finishing on time. We could almost be entitled to run the Swiss railway system. Not quite sure if we have this, but we're getting there. Real pleasure to have you with us. So hopefully, it was also a good preview for what's to come. We have a 15-minute break now, during which we ask you to get some coffee. Also, start networking, getting to know other people in the room. There is a fantastic amount of talent in this room, so we do hope that you exchange business cards with others and get to know people in this room. For those of you who are interested in following up with the speakers will be hanging around here in the front area for a little bit, so do not hesitate to come and approach us. We're going to restart at past, so please just get some coffee and come back here at past. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being back on time. And I want to also thank Miszek and, of course, the distinguished panelists from the first part for their really enriching exchange and also the very rich graphic. And really also for, with the last question, setting the stage now for our second panel that focuses on government and universities. So I would like to now introduce the moderator of this second panel. This is my colleague, Ms. Kyoko Suzuki. It's a pleasure to have you here on stage. She is the head of the Science and Technology Office at the Swiss Embassy here in Japan. Kyoko, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Gregor. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, welcome to Panel 2, Government and Companies, How Best to Collaborate to Accelerate Innovation and Ecosystems. In this panel, we would like to highlight the role of the government, starting with 2 input talks. Our first speaker is Mr. Tetsuya Tanaka, Deputy Director General, Industrial Science, Technology and Environment Policy Bureau of the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry. Mr. Tanaka is an engineer by training and also holds a master's in public administration at Harvard University's JFK School of Government. He has also served as director in charge of science and technology innovation policy at the Cabinet Office from 2018 to 2019. Mr. Tanaka will first give us a brief summary of Japan's industrial technology policy. The second speaker is Mr. Raymond Kron, CEO of Switzerland Innovation since 2015. He has held top management positions in the Swiss construction and real estate industries and has served on the board of directors of Swiss companies. He's also a former Director General of the Swiss Civil Aviation Authority. Mr. Kron will give us an overview on one of the private-public partnerships for the promotion of innovation in Switzerland. Upon receiving the 2 input talks, we have asked our 2 panelists to respond with their perspectives. We are delighted to have as the first responder Ms. Naoko Ogawa, Director of the Industrial Technology Bureau of Keidanren, or the Japan Business Federation, which is a private business organization whose membership includes more than 1,600 major companies in Japan. She is in charge of promoting science and technology innovation and digital economy at Keidanren since 2016. Our second responder is Dr. Gianluca Ambrosetti, CEO and co-founder of Synhelion, a Swiss university spin-off for clean energy and decarbonization that works with major companies as well as governments. He has held many leadership positions in the solar power and photovoltaics industry. And my next comment is targeting all 4 panelists. Their response will spur an interesting discussion for this panel. So let us dive right in. Mr. Tanaka, please, with your presentation.
はい、ご紹介。
Thank you very much for the introduction.
Okay. はい、今日はご招待いただき。
Thank you very much for the introduction. Actually, on Saturday in Osaka, for the Switzerland, the consulate's opening ceremony, I was attending. And for me, this indeed is a Swiss week, because in Tokyo there is GX week, Green Transformation Week. But for me, it's been a Swiss event all week, so it's Swiss week for me. Now, I would like to talk on 3 topics about the government's efforts, especially the efforts undertaken by the Ministry of the Economy, Trade and Industry. First of all, I'd like to talk about the Japan innovation. Who is responsible for the innovation? Who should be the main player? Please look at the graph on the left. In Japan, the major corporations account for the majority of R&D expenditures use. Still, relatively speaking, in Japan, startup activities are still limited compared to large companies, I mean. Now, also, if you look at the graph on the right, it shows the number of PhDs per million population in Japan. In Japan, which is represented in red line, completely flat compared to other countries where the number has been growing. But in Japan, the number of persons who would like to receive PhD is not increasing. Now, because of this situation, the current Kishida administration would like to increase the startup development, and now we have the startup development 5-year plan to make an investment which is 10-fold in 5 years' time. That is the current plan. Now, in this plan, especially the role of startup would be important in emerging technology fields. So support in the emerging field is where we are going to focus. Specifically, I mean the university startups, as is stated in writing. 100 billion yen of fund will be created to offer support, and also especially for drug discovery field. For the startup companies, there is a fund for 350 billion yen to offer support. Also, green transformation is a current hot issue, and for the startup companies, approximately 200 billion yen fund will be created to offer support. Next, in terms of the PhD holders, in Japan, even if companies hire, even if you obtain PhDs, it has been very difficult to have good employment. That's been the issue. So that companies, when they employ PhDs, there will be a tax credit. Tax incentives is the system introduced last year. Furthermore, In case of Japanese companies, the people who do not obtain PhDs, just the undergraduates or a master's degree, well, those people may be employed, but they can be educated within companies so that they can obtain PhDs while they are in company. When companies make such efforts, we will need to support those companies. That's been in our thoughts. Moving on to the next slide. Next is about research and development activities. And the topic is to commercialize the R&D outcomes. Because what is often said in Japan is that we have good technology. We win in technology, but lose in business. That's been the trend that's also often being talked about. Because in Japan, in private sectors, per 1 billion yen, per billion, the number of patents obtained is the largest, is the highest. So we have many people applying for a patent, but whether this patent leads to the actual business, that's not been the case. So those are the number of patent applications per billion yen of R&D expenditures. And in Europe, in general, in terms of the income from patent, there is a tax incentive system. And that's what we would like to introduce. So this is the so-called innovation box tax system. We do not have the system in Japan, and indeed, right now the government is discussing the possibility of introducing this system. The income from intellectual properties should be exempted from tax, and by having this system, the income should be led to further development, or the research and development centers may stay in Japan as a result, and that's what we like to achieve. Moving on to the next page. The next topic is about the so-called global issues. How we would like to deal with the issues is what this represents. In Europe, you have Horizon Europe, which is its research and development program, as we understand. In Japan, we would like to have measures against various global issues, and what we can do has been a topic. As I have been saying, we have the green transformation activities, and in 2021, 2 trillion yen fund for green innovation had been established so that we can support research and development activities. Furthermore, this year, GX promotion law is a new law enacted, and based on this new act, for the first time in the world, we believe, transition bond, the economic transition bond, the maximum of 20 trillion yen will be issued so that such GX-related activities can be supported and financed. Now, emerging as one of the emerging technologies that we focus on is quantum and technology and AI technology. Globally, there's been our efforts have not been known so much, but in Japan we have AIST, the National Institution for Science and Technology, which is a national research institution under METI. And this is where the world's largest AI dedicated supercomputer called ABCI is placed. On the cloud, all the researchers around the world can already use this ABCI, especially for generative AI. New to identify new utilizations, large computing board is required. And this is an AI dedicated GPU, the processor, run supercomputer. We would like to strengthen this further so that even for generative AI, Japan will be able to maintain our competitiveness. Furthermore, for quantum computing, we are putting in a lot of emphasis. The principle of quantum computing was put into practical use by Japanese researchers. But in the process of commercializing this technology, we have lost to the United States. Now, what we would like to do is, like I said earlier, AI computing system and quantum computing system should be put together as hybrid so that our research and development environment can be enhanced. Now, in such emerging technologies, the role of government is quite important. In the United States, they have GAFA, but not in Japan. We don't have the equivalence. Therefore, public support will be very important, and improving on such computing infrastructure is the role the national government should play. Therefore, this is the area where we are putting in much effort in Japan. That's all from me. Thank you very much.
Mr. Tanaka. That was a big overview of the Japanese policy. Now we would like to move on to Mr. Kron for an example, best practice, if I may say, one of the best practices from Switzerland.
Thank you very much, Kyoto. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to introduce to you Switzerland Innovation, and I hope you consider it being best practice. Next slide, please. Switzerland Innovation is a public-private partnership whose mission is to generate additional private R&D investments, and by doing so to create new high-quality jobs in Switzerland. This means politics on national level and on regional level, joined forces with private companies and with academia, and created this initiative, Switzerland Innovation. Next slide. Let me now elaborate on the approach we adopted. There are two buzzwords which were used already in the previous panel, and these two buzzwords are collaboration and open innovation. We are convinced that successful innovation happens if researchers from universities and innovative entrepreneurs work together. And that's the reason why Switzerland Innovation creates a platform on which innovative entrepreneurs and researchers from Swiss universities can work together to jointly develop research results and innovative ideas into marketable products and services. And if you look a little bit closer at the industry part or the companies, companies means we have at our parks startups, SMEs, large international enterprises, and of course also large national enterprises. And in order that this platform works, we need a strong partnership with our research partners. And our research partners are all the Swiss universities, are the universities of applied sciences, and the Swiss research institutions. Next slide. And there is a third buzzword, which is ecosystem. Innovation happens if there are breeding grounds for innovation, and this means there needs to be ecosystems. And what I show you here is the Switzerland Innovation Network. Every white dot is a site of Switzerland Innovation, and you see that it's true. And a matter of fact, if I say Switzerland Innovation is the only nationwide innovation ecosystem in Switzerland, and around every park and every site you find other layers of this innovation ecosystem, Christian Schwarzenegger referred to the ecosystem in Zurich, where we have ETH Zurich, the University of Zurich, EMPA as a research institution, and the Innovation Park, where people from these academic institutions and innovative entrepreneurs and startups can meet. Next slide. Here's some figures. I already mentioned we operate 6 innovation parks across the countries with a total of 16 innovation sites. We have 60 research partners in total, and on the park level, you find 16 accelerators and incubators. We can offer 300,000 square meters of laboratories, office space, test facilities, offices, co-working space, etc., etc. And in total, we have more than 400 resident companies. About 20% are coming from abroad, and you find also Japanese companies at Switzerland Innovation, for instance, Yokogawa, Namiki, NTT, Fanuc, to just mention a few. Next slide. Now, why should a company from Japan or an international company come to Switzerland Innovation? There are 3 main reasons why a foreign company should come to Switzerland Innovation. The first one is the academic excellence of our universities. Just to mention ETH Zurich and EPFL, which are top-ranked Swiss universities, and while they are top-ranked, they are able to attract the best talents from all over the world. At ETH, you find a very international research community. So, the second reason is this vibrant startup ecosystem we have in Switzerland, comparable to what you find in the Silicon Valley. And the third argument is the fact that in Switzerland, many large corporates operate important R&D activities. If I mention Roche, Novartis, Nestle, ABB, or UBS, these are brand names which are well known across the globe. And these companies add a third element to this ecosystem. Academia, startups, and industry partners create the breeding grounds of innovation we are offering at Switzerland Innovation. Last slide. If you are interested in getting to know more, please feel free to contact me after this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond, for your input talk from Switzerland. Now, may I turn to Ms. Ogawa for her response.
Thank you very much. I am actually. Someone talked about generative AI, and at Keidanden, generative AI is being formulated at Keidanden as I talk. So I just had to be absent from that meeting because Switzerland is a special country for me. 20 years ago, I had an occasion to be in the Japan representative office in Geneva for the WTO discussion. These 3 years have been the best years of my life, and I enjoyed my days in Switzerland to the fullest. Punctuality is one thing that was quite impressive. When I was attending WTO meeting, at the opening time, it is either Swiss or Japanese delegates who are on time, and that was our common sense. So this punctuality of this proceeding, of this meeting, really brings back the memory of my fond memories back in Switzerland. There is another thing that I was impressed. Be it Germany or France or Italy, I have traveled around all those countries surrounding Switzerland. Switzerland is the juncture of all these different cultures, and that was why Switzerland have had a very tough history of invasion that has opened doors to highly innovative culture of Switzerland. And Switzerland is one single country for many Japanese countries. However, all those different cantons in Switzerland play major roles as well. And that was another thing that I learned while I live in that country. Regional initiatives is giving rise to successful innovation parks in different cantons, which I'm very envious. Japan too should be having a more vigorous regional research cultures as well. In regional Japan, there are excellent universities, and I'm sure that there are lots of seeds for successful innovation. And around these countries, around these universities, we should create an ecosystem with not only academic but also business partners. And with such an ecosystem, that should be wonderful. And that is what Keidanren has been working for. So I have learned greatly from your innovative park system. So startup has been the hot topic in this program. Keidanren is often considered as a group of big companies. However, Keidanren over the last several years have paid closer attention to startups, because startups are indispensable not only for the innovation of big companies, but also innovation is something, or startup innovation can be helped greatly by big companies as well. Big companies can play a major role pushing startup culture as well. And why are we doing this? Because we are now going through a dramatic change of industrial structure. Incumbent industrial structure may not last very long. For Japanese economy to grow out of the sluggish economic situation, not only the big companies but also startups needs to play a larger role to serve as the engine of the economic growth of this country. In March last year, we have formulated a vision to promote startups. And next slide, please. With the vision, we have upheld a target of increasing the number and quality of startup by tenfold within the first 5 years. This is the goal, as has been introduced by Mr. Tanaka. The government shares the goal in its governmental plan as well. We are working together with the government, promoting policies needed to achieve these goals. So tripartite cooperation of business, academia, and the government is something that I would like to introduce a little bit today. First, from the business perspective, in order to promote startup ecosystem, what can we do? Let's think about 3 aspects. 1, startup can benefit from personnel, funds, and other resources from the bigger companies. Startup services and goods can be procured by big companies, so they can be the clients of startups. And startups can be merged and acquired for the startup to be further enhanced and evolved. That also means that bigger companies can find new business domains and opportunities for them. And a third is the in-house startup or entrepreneurship formulation within the company. And non-core business can be carved out from a bigger company so that a startup company can be given a birth to. So these are the 3 different types of relations you can think about when you think about the relations between big companies and startups. This should be translated into action from words. And we only have 4 years left within the 5-year plan. So we are currently working harder on the part of Keidanren by creating scorecards of member companies of Keidanren. It is very difficult to give scorecards to companies who are paying membership fees. But with this bold action, we are hoping to nudge companies to think about what they can do to give a wider, a thriving startup ecosystem. So that is how we're trying to nudge bigger companies, and we will continue the scorecard system in coming years as well. Next slide, please. So this is what the economic sector is doing, but I also want the academia to play a larger role as well. We currently have 4,000 university startups in this country, but there still remains more interesting seeds in this country as well. There are technological victory leading to business losses, but technological victory should lead to business victory as well. Universities are having challenges because researchers and professors are not necessarily born business persons. It's not that it is always best for the researchers to become the business manager. That means that better matching between researchers and business persons are critically important. And that is another area I want to learn from our Swiss counterpart as well. And the last slide. This is what I want the government to do. All these initiatives by the academia and the business should be supported by the government by creating the world's most friendly, startup-friendly environment, by deregulating the system. Any regulations that can hamper the creation of the needed ecosystem should be abolished. This is something that a single company cannot really ask the government to do. So Keidanren, on behalf of startups or startup incubators, we are providing our proposals to the government as well. METI2 is also providing consultation services for such startup companies as well. These are the areas where startups can benefit from so that startup businesses can be launched in a less stressful environment to promote tripartite collaboration to achieve the tenfold goals that I have just mentioned at the outset.
Flows very well into Dr. Ambrosetti. You are researcher turned businessman, and also you all discuss with the government about regulation. So if you can give your input as well.
Thank you very much, Kyoko, for the introduction, and konbawa. I would like to start with a personal note, and is that my personal experience as a person, as with Synhelion, with the capacity of the Swiss government as well as its universities to bridge, so first to create innovation and to bridge it into the market, the support and ecosystem, I can only describe it as flawless. And I'm not saying this as, like just, fishing for compliments or doing something like this. I really mean it. Only with Synhelion, besides, of course, the support that our alma mater, ETH, gave us and gives us, we had support from the Swiss Federal Office of Energy. At the beginning, when we were 3 guys in my old flat, so this is, it needs to be said, there was really support. Of course, we knew each other with the people, but I mean, still, the support was there from the beginning. We had then support from InnoSwiss. We had support with the Swiss Federal Office of Civil Aviation. We have an active dialogue with them. They ask, they listen. We try also to learn as much as we can. It's really an environment that it is positive. We have, in the meantime, had support also in Germany, in the United States for the Department of Energy. So I would say that there is an ecosystem that supports companies. What comes out from that is that you come to a situation where the private money, the private market supports you and invests in you, in the company, because it believes it's going to gain value. So you raise in the tens of millions, to give you also numbers, and you can develop your technology, you can start to scale it, and you do your first proof of concepts, and this works. Now comes the but, because we always need to have a but in the whole history. Where is now the challenge? The challenge, and this is a more specific challenge to the industry I'm operating within, not really specifically the technology, but let's say the deep tech space, where plants and installation need to be really, really large in order to be economically competitive, and therefore also these large-scale plants are also really, really expensive. You need to bridge this gap. It's called the valley of death, call it as you want. Is the gap that you go from installation that may cost 10 millions of euros, dollars, Swiss francs. We still may manage to have like the next stage, which may cost around 100 millions. We may still have investors thinking that they can capitalize these investments, they can see as an added value to the company, that this will transform itself into an increased value of the equity of the company. But then you will go into installations that may cost several hundred millions to billions that are not yet at the scale to be fully commercially viable and not yet fully de-risked. This is an issue that we need to face. PV has gone through there, photovoltaics has gone through that pathway, other technology have. Many very promising technologies are at this stage, and to cross this valley of death, we need to resort to the toolbox of devices that are well known, that have been used already, let's say for instance, as they say it for photovoltaics, but for other things as well. And they go on one side on the support, governmental support for the investment side. It can be funding, it can be loan guarantees. And on the other side, the offtake of the product. The security of the offtake is also something that will give investors in the plant like a security that they can sell, that at the end the economics will be solid. And this can be achieved with quotas. Europe did this for the case what we are operating in, which is renewable fuels. There are quotas also for different technologies, so that you don't finance one specific technology, but you perhaps finance a bunch of them that they all need to grow. This is a lot. It's perhaps also not enough because you still don't have the price. And the price is also an important part of the economic model that underlies any larger venture. And for that, we may need feed-in tariffs. And while it's not my role to tell which tool in the toolbox should be taken, how they should be combined, what I would like to stress is that there is a need to have schemes to support, to cross this valley of death, or however you want to call it, this passage to this very, very large capital-intensive installation that are yet risky and economically not fully competitive. There is a need to have a support on this so that the series of technologies that will allow us to go to net zero in 2050 become a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. May I turn to Mr. Tanaka for, you have introduced many programs for you. If you would like to highlight a little bit more about this Valley of Death, and if I may also add, I believe Raymond Kron and Ms. Oga also mentioned international cooperation or international actors being present. If you could also touch upon this part, if it combines with the Valley of Death, getting over the Valley of Death.
First, let me start. Business Manager's Strong Message by Mr. Ambrosetti. While green transformation in Japan is facing the same set of challenges as well. In case of Japan, startup in Japan, or early startups, have been supported with very generous support by the government. Be it green tech or deep tech or other similar technological areas, later stage of startup development or getting closer to commercialization needs more money, if you will. That also means that governmental support is not sufficient in many cases. Honestly speaking, that is a major challenge. Against this backdrop, major companies or investors needs to join the initiative. Otherwise, startup companies cannot grow bigger. That is really an area that is out of reach by the government or beyond the control of the government. And that is another thing that we are discussing and paying close attention, especially in the area of green transformation. We do have technological seeds, but market creation is another challenge because depending on types of market that we create, who can survive can be decided. Government's regulation or promotion or incentivization for market creation. That is another policy challenge on the part of the government. CAPEX, or when it comes to large-scale finance project, what the government can do has its limitations, which means that the stakeholders in the private sector is indispensable. And at least it is the challenging area for Japan, even though I'm not quite sure if the situation is the same for Switzerland. And that is one of the reasons that we are seeing less number of unicorns being born in this country. So that is a pain in the neck. So earlier stage of technological seeds creation can be helped by the government with public funding to foster the creation of technological seeds. But commercialization and CAPEX stages are the areas where investors from the private sector or major company partners are indispensable. Otherwise, creation of ecosystem friendly to ecosystem will remain to be very difficult.
In timeliness, I would like to ask Raymond if you could give very quickly some examples or challenges at the park that you have experienced or you have witnessed to overcome, or also challenges that have been faced in Switzerland.
Yes, thank you, Kyoto. Some considerations in this regard. Switzerland Innovation is a typical Swiss bottom-up structure. This means the parks are legally independent, and on national level, there is only a coordination and moderation role. And at the very beginning, we were not very fast in our development due to this bottom-up approach. That was one challenge. However, I am convinced that only bottom-up approaches work in Switzerland, and therefore, today we can see that this bottom-up setup created a lot of diversity, a lot of different business models from park to park. And you pointed out rightly that Switzerland is a country where a lot of important things are happening on regional level. That was one challenge. And the second one I would like to mention is the financing of the infrastructure. As I mentioned, we are providing also infrastructure. This means we need to invest into real estate at the end of the day. And the financing of these real estate projects, and there are projects of a couple of 100 millions, was a challenge. And also there we had different solutions in different regions, private funding. We had solutions where investors invested into the real estate and the park is renting it. So also there are very diverse approaches when it comes to the financing of the infrastructure.
Thank you very much. As much as I would really love to hear more from the four panelists, I believe our time is slowly running out. Would there be one last comment that someone would like to make? So very shy and humble Swiss and Japanese panel. But in terms of time precision, I think we are well on track. If I may give the floor back to Gregor.
Thank you very much, Kyoko, and please can take your seats. Thank you very much to Kyoko Suzuki and the distinguished panelists for those, I think, inputs. And now we are approaching the end of our forum, and I would like to introduce our last speaker, who has taken on the challenge to somehow make sense of everything we have heard today so far in the first, in those two panels, and he will attempt to do an integrative summary of today's discussions. It's my pleasure to invite Professor Dr. Michael Hengartner to the stage. Professor Hengartner serves as the president of the ETH board, the renowned Swiss Federal Institute of Technology. Professor Hengartner, please take the floor.
Thank you very much. So the take-home message first. The good news is we heard a lot of really cool stuff. The bad news for me is I'm going to need physiotherapy. I've had a really hard time getting all the notes together. So I've been asked to summarize tonight's forum in 15 minutes. The fact that anybody asks anybody to do that shows the age both of the person asking that and the person presenting. If my kids' generation would get this question, they'd simply replay the YouTube video at 8x speed and they'd be done with it. So we started with a message from Ambassador Andreas Baum. What we heard or what we learned from him is that building relationship takes time, right? So the relationship started 1864. It's strong now, but it did not happen overnight. So it takes perseverance to build up relationship. We heard that many times. If you want to build up relationship between academia and industry, between government and industry, you need to work together, and that takes time. One needs to get to learn each other, trust each other. We also heard or learned that businesses are often more agile than governments. It was the Swiss watchmaker, not the Bern bureaucrats, who came to Japan and started relationship between the two countries. And the last learning point was that it might be wise to check your partner's agendas before you fix a meeting. The fact that we have a roof over our head shows how efficient Swiss diplomats can be in times of crises. And the fact that we have a full house, I think, is a testament to the strong ties between Switzerland and Japan, the strong mutual interest we have in nurturing and even strengthening these ties over the coming years. We had a keynote speech from the State Secretary Martina Hirayama. She gave us a good overview of the innovation system in Switzerland and explained to us how Switzerland government supports this ecosystem. We heard that it does that largely by encouraging cooperation between academia and industry and by generating good boundary conditions and financing cooperation. And these two words, good boundary conditions and financing, are actually the thread that came throughout today. If there's a key message, if you want to have a strong cooperation, if you want to get ideas into industry and have a good economy, good boundary condition, and the correct necessary financial support. We then moved to the first panel. We heard from Professor Watanabe that there was a doubling of cooperation in yen values over the last 5 years between Tokyo Tech and industry, particularly an increase in big projects. And there was clearly a move from smaller opportunistic collaborations to larger strategic collaborations, more structured collaborations, more long-term collaborations, which he mentioned required the university also to change the way it manages projects. I must admit, professors are very creative. Sometimes in project management, it's not what you want. And so obviously working together requires to learn each other's culture and requires to have not a transactional, but a long-term vision of how to work together. So we're not in this just for today and tomorrow. We're in this for the next year, for the next decade. And then the logic of working together, how much you're willing to invest into this relationship changes. This is true not only between industry and academia, it's true also between industries, and of course it also works for the government. From Christian Schwarzenegger, we heard how University of Zurich is trying to promote innovation. I think it was very clear that there was a strong will to bring ideas from the university into companies. However, it was also very clear that ideas alone were not good enough. You also need to bring the people into the companies. The word talent may be the third word that we heard over and over and over. Industry needs talent. Universities need to generate talent, and this talent needs to then find the right place to go if we want to have success. The university finds money to accelerate the process. Again, we hear that funding is important, and it also focuses on the area where they are excellent. I think having a critical mass is absolutely essential. Critical mass in research expertise, which area the university has chosen. Critical mass in infrastructure, so that you have the actual tools to do it. I would also say critical mass in financing opportunities. Again, without growth, and we heard that from the last speaker, from Synhelion, without talent, it's not going to work. So you really need to have this mix of good ideas, good talent, good funding, and good boundary conditions for the system to work. From Mr. Sumiyama, we heard how his group supports Sony. It was interesting. The first thing he said that his to-do was to connect groups within Sony. So not only between Sony and others, but Sony being so big, you need to connect people within Sony. Reminded me of my own university, right? So as a university president, you work a lot to just have the faculties talk to each other. You know, there are their own little kingdoms. Indeed, much of the tools that Sony uses to bring into corporations between them are tools that my colleague Schwarzenegger would also know and is used by university leadership. At the end, both types of activities, academia and industry, are human enterprises. And we humans tend to click the same way. We're very social creatures, but we can be also quite idiosyncratic. So having a little bit of knowledge of psychology helps a long way in both places. We heard three things that Sony wants from universities. They want to collaborate to get expertise. They want to do some scouting to just learn about new things, discover. And the third, you've guessed it, access to talent. That's what they need. They do this by talking to universities, by offering grants. And this brings us, of course, to what the universities want from industry. It's clear what industry get from universities. What do universities get from industry? Part of it is idealism. Universities are here to help society. We want our ideas to grow and to nurture. Part of it is the money. And here, very importantly, we heard industry is not a funding agency. I think it's important for university to realize that, you know, it's not JSPS or JST. This is a company with very clear goals, very clear things. We need a problem that is well defined, and we need to have a company that is really interested, if the project is to survive, a change of management, a change of priority. We heard several examples of that. Last comment I found interesting. From Professor Watanabe, a university is like a jungle. First semester students might even agree with that. But also in research, I could say I saw many similarities. Yes, like a jungle, a university is beautiful, but it's somewhat dangerous. You find ants which work together. You find tigers. You find sloth. You find leeches. Let's not take the analogy too far. But I will leave you with two questions. How can we manage this jungle? So one of the challenges is, of course, if you want to get the most productive jungle, you need to make sure that you know how it functions. Again, it's an ecosystem with its own different rules, and they're not easy to understand. Here, university presidents have a challenge to make sure that they understand how their institution works so that they can really get the most out of it. And at the same time, we want to exploit this jungle without killing it in the process. Again, we see what happens in the Amazonas. So we need to have a sustainable use. And this is my message to industry. Do not exploit the university in the exploitation sense. Take advantage of what it is, but also be in it for the long term. You need the university to also thrive out of this relationship if you want to have a long-term success. It's like the goose with the golden egg. Right? Don't kill the goose just to get the egg. Finally, we had this interesting short discussion about generative AI and the provocative idea, can Gen AI replace universities? No, it cannot. You know, it's funky because every time there's a new technology coming along, I hear the same thing. Oh, this will replace universities. I'm sure when Gutenberg, discovered book printing, right? Now we had books. I'm sure some people said, why do you go to university? Read the book. It's all in the book, right? And then we had radio, and then we had television, then we had internet, and then we had MOOCs. Now we have AI. Why do you go to university? Gen AI will do it for you. No, it will not. Gen AI is great at interpolating, even good perhaps at extrapolating. It never will go orthogonally to what we have. I think for that we still need humans. So yes, it generates leads. It will accelerate lead development, but we still need to test. Leads are not products, as most companies here will certainly agree. So I see AI simply as the fourth wave in the computer revolution. We had first the personal computers, then we had the internet, then we had mobile, and now we have AI. I would even say autonomous agents actually will be the really interesting part of AI, when these machines will do their own thing based on rules that we gave them. And we basically have a parallel society that will be next to us in 10 years. It will become very interesting. And finally, then, the last question to the board was a seg, where the question was, what is the role of government? And in fact, we could have skipped the second panel because the answer was friendly rules, including opportunities to try new things, and funding. The second panel confirmed what we heard in the first panel. From Mr. Tanaka, we heard about the Japanese industry policy, the efforts to increase the number of doctorates. Again, we need talent. And generation of talent is the role of the public sector, of the universities, largely funded by the government. We heard, on the other hand, that we also needed to somehow take ideas and bring them into industry. Mr. Tanaka mentioned various financial incentives that the government had to promote innovation in Japan, Innovation Box, to finance the energy transition, to finance quantum and AI. With sums which I must tell you made many of my Swiss science colleagues salivate. These are numbers we would love to have in Switzerland. But that's because Switzerland has a focus somewhere else. After Mr. Tanaka, we had Mr. Kron, who told us about Switzerland innovation. I saw not a single franc number on any of the slides of Mr. Kron. It was all about boundary conditions, methods, promoting collaborations between universities and industry, nurturing an ecosystem. No money. I'm not sure that there's no money. And yes, we Swiss tend not to talk about money. That is true. We manage it, but we don't talk about it. But Switzerland has a tendency, as the State Secretary Hirayama already said, to not focus as much on money, but more on boundary conditions. Again, you can go more this way, more that way. At the end, you need both. Without both, it will be very hard to be successful. Ms. Ogawa then brought up the fact that, in fact, we needed all three players that we mentioned at the beginning to work here. She started saying big companies want to have a thriving startup ecosystem, but then she said not only big company needs to get involved, we also need academia to get involved, and we need the government to get involved, again, by generating boundary conditions. It's interesting, she did not ask for more money. Industry often prefer good boundary conditions and then say, let me run and do my show. I know how to get the opportunities if you unshackle me. Finally, we heard from Ambrogio that a lot works well. That is very good. But, of course, there needed to be a but. There's still room for improvement. And what I got from him is there is not that there's still room for improvement. There's still need for improvement. Good enough is not good enough in today's world, particularly for challenges where our whole societies are challenged in the real sense of the world. Climate change, energy transitions, these are not nice to have transitions, these are must-have transitions. And here really we need to invest in order to make this transition. It's not a trivial issue, but I think it's an absolutely crucial one. Let me close by bringing back together the two key concepts that we heard today. The first is what Ms. Ogawa called the triangle. I call it the triple helix, and that is that you need three actors for the system to work. You need the government, you need academia, and you need industry. It's no coincidence that the two panels here addressed two of these axes. The first panel was on the academia-industry relationship, the second panel on the relationship between industry and government. It was interesting for me to see that there was no panel on the government in university relationship. Maybe it's so easy we don't need to talk about it, or maybe it's so hopeless that there's no need to talk about it. We'll discuss it at the apro afterwards. The other thing I'd like to mention is that this triple helix really is a win-win-win. Sometimes some people feel that this triple helix is more a ménage à trois. There's one too many. Industry and academia tell the government, just leave us alone, we'll do our stuff. This is not correct. No rules is not good, right? We want good rules. We want few rules, but good rules. So we do need the government. We simply want the government to not intervene too much. You love us and support us, but don't micromanage us, I think. We will all appreciate. And finally, funding. I hate to stop with that, but I must. I'll leave you with three BOMOs, three proverbs, which I find interesting. The first is, money is not everything. But I would say, we heard, boundary conditions are important. So just with money, you will not be successful. But with no money, you won't be successful either. So you need some money. Second statement, money does not buy happiness, but it does allow you to train and recruit talent. So you do need it. And finally, one of my favorite quotes, and it's a quote from Benjamin Franklin, a great inventor, but also a great politician, and a great businessman. So we bring actually all three things together in this Renaissance man. And he said it not only as a scientist, but again, as a businessman and as a politician, $1 invested in knowledge pays the best interest. I'm absolutely certain that this is absolutely still true today, perhaps even more than in the 18th century. And with this, I close. I thank you for your attention, and I look forward to having great discussions at the upper room. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Hengartner, to guide us to the jungle of those two panels and leave us with some inspirational but also concrete, I think, words crystallizing some of the messages and hopefully also takeaways for the stakeholders tonight in the room. So, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, please maybe join me one last time in giving a round of applause to all our speakers and moderators today. Thank you. So this brings us to the end of the formal part of the Economic Forum. And before we leave, just two last practical remarks, if you allow me. The first one is, please leave your interpretation devices in the room, otherwise we will get in trouble. The second one, as organizers, we always, of course, strive to improve the experience of you, participants, guests in the room. So please go back to the program that you found on your seat. You will find the QR code. Scan it, and it will lead you to a very short feedback survey. It will just take a couple of minutes. You can do it today or, of course, later on as well. We'd appreciate to receive your feedback. So now, in the name of the three organizers, it's really my pleasure to invite you to continue the conversations that have been started at a networking reception, which will be just on the other side of this wall. We cannot remove it, so you'll have to go through the doors. We will have a short Kampai speech from the president of the Swiss Chamber of Commerce, and then we invite you all to enjoy a buffet dinner. And for those of you who may be wondering, yes, we do serve Swiss wine. So please enjoy. Thank you for coming, and see you on the other side. Thank you.